Hey, everybody, it's Tommy Lee Francis with the Morgan County Today, and we are live here on Tuesday night, July the 19th. We are excited to be here. We got a great guest with us here tonight that'll be picking and grinning and telling us some great stories. He's out of Oak Ridge, and that is the Appalachian Storyteller, J.D. Phillips. As usual, I have it muted.
Oh, okay. How's everybody doing?
Sorry, JD.
All good.
I tell everybody it's a beta, so we're working out the kinks. But anyway, JD Phillips is here with us. He is the Appalachian Storyteller, and we're going to get into that and let him tell us some great stories and some music. JD, and let's get the right screen set up here. All right, JD. So tell us where you're from.
Well, I am. We've been in Oak Ridge now for about 10 years, and before that, Roane County for a long time. And so, anyways, I teach at the high school, and I've been teaching people how to play the fiddle and the violin and the cello and the bass and things like that for 21 years. And tell a lot of stories during class, and people would always say, "Man, you should start telling stories and things like that." But for me, I never knew it was a story because growing up, we didn't really have cable or anything like that, and people just talked and people just listened to each other. It was just having conversations, and now it's like people have to schedule time. Okay, you tell me something, and I'll schedule time to listen. So,
right.
So the whole storytelling thing is kind of new. I didn't really know it even had a name.
Well, life gets busy, and the fact that you have wanted to share these stories with your students for so many years, and now it's kind of turned into a hobby that other people can enjoy with the technology that's out there with YouTube and Facebook. And before we go any further, make sure you guys check out his YouTube page, which is the Appalachian Storyteller, and also his Facebook page, and give him a like. So that helps him out. That's free. You can go do that. He's got special content on there sometimes for subscribers and other things, but you can hit those like buttons and subscribe to his YouTube channel for free. Make sure you share this post and let other people watch and enjoy the show as well. And if you got stars, you know what to do, give them. And, of course, we have some great dad jokes for you, too, because I make everybody that comes on here that's a dad tell us some great jokes. So, without further ado, we're going to continue talking to JD. You mentioned something about a fiddle and a violin. So, for those of you out there watching, I guess you already know there is a difference, but they're actually the same instrument. Is that right, JD?
Yeah, well, you can get technical and kind of shave your bridge and things like that. But for the most, I didn't bring a violin, but if I could just show you, it's really, if you're playing a violin, usually you're just playing one string at a time, and a fiddle, you're just playing multiple strings. So it's a different technique with the bow. And, of course, you got different techniques with slides and things like that, but for the most part, it's the same instrument. Like I said, you can get in there and tweak them. I can take this guitar and just do little things to it, and it's the same thing with the fiddle. But
go from country to rock
or
whatever.
It's pretty much the same thing. So, yeah, we play fiddle music, and we also play classical music. So, and we don't change any instruments. So.
It's just about how you're strumming them, right?
Yeah, it's just how you're playing it, man.
So now, did Charlie Daniels play the fiddle or the violin?
Yeah, he played the fiddle. I was lucky to see Charlie a few months before he died, and got his autograph, and then I lost it. He dies, and then I lost the autograph. And well, we were going to do some. My wife sells candles, and so we were going to do this candle craft show. And I'll be dang, I found it. So I found it the other day again. So I think I'm gonna maybe frame it or something. But Charlie was a great guy. It was just a few months before he died, and was watching him play. And I mean, man, he had an Apple iWatch on. He took his iPhone out at some point and was doing something with it. He had all these technical gadgets on his guitar and everything. And it was like, man, I hope I'm 85 years old and I'm, so in tune with technology. So
right,
he's a great guy.
And, of course, you don't need to lose that autograph because you can't get another one.
Right. Yeah. Lucky I found it, though.
Yeah, that's the end of that one. So you brought your guitar, so I guess you're going to play us a tune here, maybe?
Yeah, sure. I really don't want to jump right into that kind of a story. Let me tune this thing again real quick. I'll tell you a joke while I'm tuning
All right,
this.
let's hear it.
So, how do you stop a bull from charging?
I don't know, JD. How do you stop a bull from charging?
You cancel his credit card.
Cancel his credit card. That gets a laugh. We'll throw the laugh out for him on that one. Even the Appalachian Storyteller has some good jokes. I'm going to save mine for a little bit later here.
So, I told you, so I've been a teacher now for 21 years, but I didn't start off being a teacher because, dude, I hated school. When I was a kid, I couldn't wait to get out of school. I was just one of those kids. It just wasn't for me, or at least I didn't think it was at the time, and so as soon as I got out of school, I went and took some training and got certified as an electrician in HVAC, and I was running like crews building hotels for casinos and things outside of Memphis, and I did that for a few years, and I started looking around at construction workers in their 60s and things like that. Well, first I noticed there wasn't a lot of them, and then second, crawling around in attics and underneath houses and things. It's a rough life, it can be. And so I decided I wanted to go back and pursue my first love, which was music, because, man, I grew up, I played in every church, and then I got old enough, I played in every bar and everything in between, and that was just kind of my passion. And so one day I was in my uniform, I think it said Interstate Realty Management on it. I was like over this apartment complex or something, and I saw this sign that says music teacher needed, and I was like, okay. So I went and got a music license, went and got my bachelor's degree, and walked in there and told the guy, I said, yeah, I'm here to apply for the job. He lowered his glasses down and he said, what job? And I said, for music teacher. And he said, you got a license? And I said, yes, sir, I got a license. He said, hold on. And so he gave me the application and hired me right on the spot.
No way.
That should have been a red flag.
Now, where was this at?
That should have been a red flag for me. It was in a really, really poor area in Roane County, really, really bad school. But that should have been a red flag for me right there. If somebody's going to hire you just like that. Right. He didn't ask me anything about me. There was no interview, nothing. It was just sign right here. You're hired. So they put me in there, and they put me in there with these kids. And the classroom that I had was off of the gymnasium. Right, and so the principal's walking me there. His name was Percy Powell, and he walks me there, and he says, this is your classroom. He unlocks it, opens it up, and it's a locker room. It's the locker room for the gymnasium. All right, that's the music classroom. There's showers in there, and that was my classroom. It was just a bad deal. And so I'm standing there, and I'm waiting on the first day of school, and they bring all these kids in, and they're bringing in 4-year-olds. They're in kindergarten. And the gym, the basketball court's pretty long, and those kids are walking the boundary line of out of bounds, and they're coming, and man, they're just coming, and just coming around the corner. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know what I'm going to do, because I hadn't taught a day in my life. And they finally came in, and 2 teachers came in with them and dropped them off and said, it's my break, I'll be back in 45 minutes. And those kids are crying. And most of them, it's the first day they'd ever been away from their mom or their dad or their grandma or whatever. And so I didn't know what to do with those kids. And pretty much all heck broke loose for the next 45 minutes. And I was about to have the shortest teaching career ever. So I left there, and I got in the truck, and I was like, I can't do this, man. There's no way I'm going to survive, doing this. And so I got an idea. I was like, well, maybe I should just bring my guitar tomorrow. And I was like, how am I going to get them to listen, And so I went to Walmart, and I got a goldfish bowl. And I bought the biggest bag of Tootsie Rolls that they had. And I didn't know, like, any little kid songs. It's funny how you can, like, graduate as a music teacher and not really know anything about actually teaching.
Yeah.
At least I did. And so I went in there, and I was like, well, I know this Led Zeppelin song, Stairway to Heaven, right? So I said, well, let me just change the words. So I went in there, I filled that goldfish bowl up full of Tootsie Rolls, and I put it behind me, and those kids started marching in, crying, same old thing, stepping on each other. It was just getting rough, and so I just started playing because I knew this A minor chord would psychologically just kind of get to them, so I started going. Kids are kind of looking around, like, what's going on here? And I started out, I said, there's a little kid I know that's been good as gold, and they're going to get, you guessed it, a Tootsie Roll. 'Cause when I seen them, I knew They were good as gold, and they were going to get. And the kids are going, Tootsie Roll. I'm like, yeah. Then get to the bridge. Tootsie Roll, oh, Tootsie Roll, and they're going to get. By this time, some kids are like crisscross applesauce, doing this number right here. They're figuring it out, and so I'm just hanging on this A minor chord. And so I pick out one kid. I pick out this little girl. I said, "Come up here." I said, "Get you a Tootsie Roll out of that goldfish bowl." I said, "Now turn around. Look at the class. Eat it." And so I said, "Just chew it. Take your time." And so she did. About 30 seconds, and every kid was just watching like, "What?" Dude, from that day on, every kid came in that class, and I mean, they were hugging me. They were so good, and we would sing that song every day. And so we did that for about 6 months. And then finally, for kicks, one day I said, "There's a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold, and the buying the stairway to heaven." You know, the real lyrics. They were like, what in the world is that? But that was kind of my first moments as a teacher there. Like, I almost literally had the shortest career ever, but somehow I stuck it out, and here we are 21 years later.
But these kids learn this song and think that you're singing the wrong lyrics at the end of the year.
Yeah. So the Tootsie Roll song, man, it was great.
And that's probably what, when they hear it on the radio now, that's a Tootsie Roll song. These guys have rewritten that.
Yeah. Let me retune this again. Yeah, so Morgan County, Wartburg. Yeah, so Appalachian Storyteller. So, you know, COVID hit, and everybody had to, like, find things to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, going back to teaching, they were like, "Hey, you're going to stay at home. I need you to upload a video every day, and we're still going to pay you." And I'm like, "Really?" So, dude, I was traveling around America in my RV, and every day I'd upload this little video, and I was still getting paid. And, you know, my wife was like, you need to write these stories down. You're getting older. You know, you need to write these down for your son. But pencil and paper, like I said, you know, I didn't like school in the first place, so pencil and paper always kind of seemed boring. So I just started making videos, and I made videos like with no purpose at all. I don't. It's hard to say there was any purpose to it. And then all of a sudden, you know, slowly but surely, people started watching them, and people started contacting me, and you know, it's kind of snowballed now. And so the Appalachian Storyteller's got about 12,000 subscribers on YouTube, and a little over 1,000 on Facebook, and it's been viewed by over 1.5 million people all across the world. That's just
incredible. Yeah.
And I have people from Australia and from London and Switzerland and just all kinds of places contacting me, and been looking for long lost relatives or anything they could find out about someone's life. And you know, you accidentally do some things, and then you're like, "Oh God, I need to try to be better," or something.
Yeah.
You know. But like I said, I was just doing it for myself, you know, and just for something to do during COVID, and here we are. It's about 2 years later, and it's still going.
Well, you can always do what we do and just call it a beta, and that's when we mess up and just keep going. Yeah. Jill Jones-Lazuka says hello, JD.
How's it going, Jill? Congratulations to your son, Forge and Fire,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
He's going to be our guest. I haven't announced it yet, but he's going to be our guest on August the 2nd. Yeah. We're going to have him doing, and that's Josh Foreign, and he's going to be doing some forging down in Alabama. It'll be remote. We'll be live here, and then he'll be live there. We'll do a virtual, and he's going to be showing us how to make some cool, different knives and swords and things like that. So we're really excited about that, and that's going to be August the 2nd.
Yeah, I don't even know him, but, you know, Jill's such a great person, and she was so excited, you know, talking about it. And so we watched the episode, and, you know, and Josh of All Trades, I believe.
That's it. Yeah. His Facebook page is Josh of All Trades, because he does so much stuff. Yeah. And I've tried to pinpoint a time to talk to this guy, and he's so busy, and we finally were able to hook up. But we're excited about it, and Josh does a great job on that stuff. I mean, it's just like you find a hobby that you enjoy. You love the music. You love to tell stories, because really songwriting and singing is storytelling. You know, one of the most famous storytellers in East Tennessee through their music is Dolly Parton.
Right.
You know, she just does so much and so famous and popular all across the globe because of her unique talent.
Yeah, I had a lady told me the other day, I played in cards, and after the show was over, she came up and she said, you know, the way you use music to teach people, you should be a teacher. And so I was like, yeah, maybe so. I'll look into that.
Yeah, think about that. But
I'll
21 years you've been doing it, right?
Yeah, 21 years, man. 21 years. It's crazy. Like I said, I didn't even like school. And I think that's why kids really like me, because they see I'm a real person. You know, I work with people that turn into teachers the moment they walk in the door and then become their real selves when they walk out. This is me, no matter whether I'm on the podium teaching Mozart or Beethoven,
Yeah.
or if I'm here.
Or Charlie Daniels.
Yeah. Yeah, so, but I did a video. Of course, everybody knows, I mean, we're in Morgan County, and Brushy Mountain Prison
Right.
is huge around here. One of the earliest videos I did was on the Coal Creek War. And, man, what a great history that was. And so I got a song here. But I guess before I just play it for you, I should tell you a little bit about it, just in case somebody doesn't know. But the Coal Creek War it started in 1891. And so basically, you know, you think about after the Civil War, and when all of these soldiers were going through these mountains and everything, they discovered all these coal veins in the mountains. And so all of a sudden, all these deep pocket businessmen came down here, bought up thousands of acres, and set up little instant cities to have coal mining towns. And, you know, so these coal miners here in East Tennessee, they weren't in unions or anything like that, but anytime they wanted better pay, they would always wait until the coal demand was high. They would wait till the winter, and they would strike. And these coal mining companies got sick of it, and so finally they worked out a deal with the Tennessee government to start. They paid the Tennessee government $75,000 a year to use convict labor for free. You know, and the Tennessee government was broke because the Civil War just crushed them. They had no money, and so they're like, 75,000, we'll do that. And so basically they took all of the coal miners' jobs, and they were using prisoners to do it. And so the prisoners the coal miners in 1891, on Halloween night of all nights, they went in and a surprise attack, and they basically formed their own little army and went in there and freed all those prisoners, put them on a train, got them out of there. And the next 2 years turned into an all-out war between the Tennessee government and the militia at the time. And coal miners came from Virginia and Kentucky and all over East Tennessee to wage this war to end this use of free convict labor. And so anyways, this is a song called Coal Creek War. Here we go. Where are you going, my little man? Crossing the mountain with that gun in your hand. Well, I'm gonna join the miners in the Coal Creek town. We're gonna light a torch and burn the stockade down. The soldiers are coming from near and far. Gonna take a part in the Coal Creek War. Gonna take a part in the Coal Creek War. Where have you been, my son so dear? And what's that awful sound across the mountain I hear? The Coal Creek War, that's what you hear. The soldiers are coming, and they're getting mighty near. Yeah, the soldiers are coming from near and far. Gonna take a part in the Coal Creek War. Gonna take a part in the Coal Creek War. So yeah, it's a little abbreviated version of the Coal Creek War. So hey, so this is what's crazy about that. So the miners went to war with them for 2 years, and it lasted all the way up until 1893. And the government of Tennessee finally says, okay, all right, guys, because at this point the Tennessee government is spending $250,000 a year to fight the war with the miners.
Oh, wow.
Even though they're only making $75,000, so they're losing money just to show these American people that you can't stand up to us. So this was literally a case of little man against the government. And so they tell them, they say, look, when our contracts expire, we won't renew them. We will no longer use convict labor. And so the miners were like, okay, that was good. And they had just passed the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery.
Right.
But there's a little technicality in that 13th Amendment that a lot of people never really talked about, and that was called involuntary servitude. That was legal. And what that meant is if you were a prisoner, they could use you as a slave. And so what happens in 1865, the contracts run out, and the government's been planning all along, and they build a place called Brushy Mountain Prison. And so they build that place, and they have those prisoners build those railroads coming in, and they built it right there where they could get to all the coal mines. And so they cut out the middleman. They cut out the companies, and the government themselves were using prisoners to mine for coal. And, of course, that's how you get Petros. You know,
Yeah.
Petros, man, that was a booming town, you know,
Right.
because of that prison there. And a lot of people don't know. You ride through Petros now, you'd never know that was once a really cultured place.
Yeah.
They even had an opera house there. Can you imagine that?
Didn't know that. Lived here all my life. Never knew about the Petros Opry House.
Can you imagine them singing Beethoven
Wow.
in Petros? So they did, you know. But you ride through there now, and it doesn't look anything like that.
Well, you know, we filmed a movie there back in '98.
Was that October Sky?
Yep, October Sky.
Yeah, October Sky, and that was it was supposed to be West Virginia, I believe.
Yes, right.
Yeah, and somebody told me the launch site is somewhere around here where they launched that missile. It's somewhere.
Yeah, that's
around-
right. So that's actually down the road going toward Petros. So when you go back home to Oak Ridge, it's just outside of Wartburg there. You'll pass Ace Hardware and a couple other places, and then
on private property.
Yeah, it is private property. But Meadowview Baptist Church has a red roof. It kind of sits off the road in the gully a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But right past there, there's a place to turn left. And
Do they have a marker or anything?
they do not. No, not there. But now downtown Oliver Springs, of course, is where they filmed a lot of the other pieces of it.
Yeah.
But we were able. I was actually in that movie as an extra,
Oh, wow,
of course.
that's
Yeah,
cool, man.
And I was in that part when we filmed the main rocket going up to
Okay.
Miss Riley, and so that was pretty exciting.
For me, that's a great movie, and I didn't know any of that history living in Oak Ridge until I did a video on Oliver Springs, and I noticed all the buildings had this coal company written on it,
Olga
which was
Coal
still,
Company,
yeah,
yeah.
it's still from the movie. And so me and my son went out and rented October Sky and watched it, and I had no idea it was a Disney movie, and just a great.
So
movie.
you know the Petros there where you're talking about, the downtown part of Petros, they filmed a lot of that there, and some of those old Olga Coal Company is still on some of the monikers there, and the Rock Mission and other places. They filmed right around in that area, and some of the homes were used, like his home in the movie. It was one of the homes there in downtown Petros that was being lived in. They just used it as a set.
Yeah, talking about Petros. So when they shut down Brushy Mountain, you know, that destroyed the economy there. You know, no more culture, no more opera houses, nothing like that. I did a video about it. It's called and this song here is called "They Don't Dig for Coal Here Anymore." So I'll play a little bit of this, but this is about Petros, Tennessee. Here we go. As I sit and look around in this little mountain town, my mind goes back to better times before. How my daddy raised a family here with a shovel and a pick, but they don't dig for coal here anymore. And this empty lot I stand in was once a boarding house, and I can still recall the compound on the floor. And I can almost hear the whistle of a train that used to be, but they don't dig the coal here anymore. No, they don't dig the coal here anymore. There's an empty field where the tipple stood before, and everything that used to be is now just a memory. No, they don't dig for coal here anymore. Now the railroad is gone, the schoolhouse is gone, and they tore down the company store. And they sealed up all the mines on the other side of town. No, they don't dig for coal here anymore. Most everyone I know left here many years ago, and they wonder why I'm still hanging around here for. But you see, I love this little town. She's the sweetest one I've found. But they don't dig for coal here anymore. No, they don't dig for coal here anymore. There's an empty field where the tipple stood before. And everything that used to be, oh, it's now just a memory. They don't dig for coal here anymore.
Great stuff,
Thanks,
JD.
man. Thanks, man.
For those of you who are out there watching, before we go on to the next part here, make sure you leave us a comment. Let us know where you're watching from. If you got stars, do like Jill did and be a good watcher and send us some stars. You know that helps us pay for the broadcast. And just let us know. And again, hit the share button so you can let other folks watch and enjoy the music from JD and the stories that he's going to continue to share with us here for the next 30 minutes or so. If you have any questions for JD, leave them in the comments. We'll get to them. He'll answer them.
Yeah, sure.
If you want to know about some place here in East Tennessee, he's covered a lot of different places. So I'm sure he would be happy to help us understand a little bit more. So with that being said, let's talk about Oak Ridge, where you're from. There's a lot of history there, World War II, with the Manhattan Project and other things. So just share some of that with us.
Yeah, so Oak Ridge, I feel like a lot of people know about the Manhattan Project and that they had built the atomic bomb there secretly and had the secret city during the early 1940s. What a lot of people don't know about Oak Ridge is prior to 1940. You know, people think that Oak Ridge was just suddenly invented when the government came in there, but it wasn't, you know. So for those of you who don't know, the government came in during World War II. Einstein wrote a letter to the president at that time and said, look, the Nazis are really close to discovering the secret to this atomic bomb, and we've got to work on it as well. And so they brought in the brightest engineers and scientists from all over the world, literally. They put them all on trains and boats and things like this, and nobody knew where they were going. They just came to this secret place where the government had taken everybody's land in the area that's now Oak Ridge and gave them 2 weeks to get out. And if anybody resisted, they would send military there and take all their guns and everything, and everybody had to leave. And so then they put up a fence around it, put the military around it, and at one point during the 1940s, Oak Ridge, while they were developing that bomb, was using more electricity per day than New York City.
Wow.
And it was the third biggest city in the state of Tennessee, and the Tennessee governor didn't even know it existed.
Wow.
It was top secret. And so anyways, they developed the atomic bomb, and they drop it on Japan, and it ends World War II. So how did we get there? Well, you know, I told you they took everybody's land back in the 1940s. So, you know, like many of these communities, they didn't start off as cities. So when you go back to prior to 1940, Oak Ridge was actually a collection of several communities. It was a place, one little area called Robertsville, another place called Jefferson. There was a place called Bethel, Elza, just many different little communities, you know, and most of them centered around, you know, large farm owners and things like that. And so these people had been there in that valley of what they called at the time Black Oak Ridge. They had been there for 150 years, isolated from the rest of the world, you know, and then one day the government comes in and just takes it, you know. So very interesting thing. And there's a video on my channel about a guy who predicted it all. So in the year 1900, there was a guy named John Hendricks who lived in what is now Oak Ridge. As a matter of fact, his tombstone is maybe 8-9 tenths of a mile from my house. But they thought this guy was a witch. They thought he was crazy. Some people thought he was a prophet, but all of them were scared of him because he made all kinds of predictions. He predicted the airplane, decades before it came. He predicted the railroad coming through decades before it came through. He predicted tunnels through mountains. He predicted all kinds of things, and his wife thought he was crazy, and so she left him. She took the kids and she left him, and it just devastated him. And so he sought God. He got closer to God through the whole thing, the whole tragedy. And so God supposedly told him to go lay down in the woods for 40 days and 40 nights, and he would reveal the future of his home. And so he did. He went out there in the middle of the winter and laid down in the woods there in Oak Ridge, on the Black Oak Ridge. And after he was there, gone, man, he was gone for weeks. And so finally folks started going out there to check on him. One lady went out there, and he was so cold that his hair was frozen to the ground.
Wow.
And she put a blanket on him, gave him some food, things like that. But when he came out, he predicted that there was going to be a city built in this little isolated nothing place where people had lived there for 150 years. He predicted that the greatest war that was ever going to happen for mankind was going to happen. And what was going to happen in that little city they were going to build was going to end it. He predicted the earth shaking. He predicted the atomic bomb. He predicted all of this stuff. And none of it happened until 30 years after he died. And anyways, I've got a video about it.
Is that one on the YouTube channel?
Yeah, it's called The Oak Ridge Prophet. And, you can check that out. And if you're interested in history of Oak Ridge, too, I've got about a 20-minute video on what Oak Ridge was prior to the 1940 Manhattan Project.
Well, we have, I don't know if you know Ray Smith. He's the historian.
I do.
So Ray actually writes for our paper weekly. So we have history of Oak Ridge in there. He'll tie it to Morgan County a lot of times when there's things to tie there, but it's really interesting articles.
Yeah.
And so he'll share those with the other papers, I think, down that way, publications, but we're pleased to have him. This video about the Oak Ridge Prophet, that one's on YouTube. That one's free to view, right?
Yeah. 99% of everything that's on my channel is free to view. It's not free to produce. It costs me lots of money traveling around. And, of course, I mean, I'm looking at all your equipment here, and I understand the struggle. So
the struggle is real, my friend.
So anytime people donate any kind of money, wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's really huge. And if you don't have money, watching also helps, watching and sharing and things like that. So yeah, don't think of my channel as a pay channel. Everything there is free, and some people decide to go for memberships and things like that. And when people do things like that, if people like join the channel, then like recently, I spent 2 weeks in Virginia, and we filmed all kinds of stuff that's about to come out. But people who are like joined to the channel, every day they got videos. We're here today at this
kind of a behind the scenes.
Yeah, they got all of that, and then all the videos that come out, they get to see them like a week before everybody else and things like that. And it's just a way to to help me. Offset, I mean, you may have noticed gas has went up a couple of cents.
Yeah, definitely. There's a reason for that.
And so, we were talking about gas. My wife's parents live in right across the Hudson River from New York City. And I spent the first 30 years of my life, I had never, ever been to New York City. And now that we got married, I've been there like 15 times. And it's crazy. But they have like this Amazon distribution center there right by their house where everything that people, when you get that package at home, you open it up and I don't like it, and you send it back.
Yeah.
It all goes to this one place.
Oh, okay.
And so you can go in there on a Saturday, and everything that's in there, it's just boxes. Everything's $5, no matter what it is.
Wow.
Like you can score some stuff. Anyways, but you got to go in there and fight the hordes of New York City people, which I'm like, no. And so I don't go. But anyways, my son went. My son's 11 years old. And he comes back and Dad, I got you something. I'm like, okay. So he throws it down. It's this huge brick of Biden stickers that say, I did that. So I'm like, how does my son know to bring me something like
Right.
that? I don't think I've ever said anything about Joe Biden, but I guess body language must
Even
be.
the younglings know.
I mean,
When we grumble as parents, you guys know this. When you're grumbling as parents, gas, you know, they know.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you'd have to live under a rock to know.
yeah. We travel a lot shooting these videos.
Not know.
We have a 40-foot RV with an 80-gallon gas tank that knocks down.
Woo, Lord have mercy. Regular gas or diesel?
It's regular gas. It knocks down 6 miles to the gallon.
Woo!
And so, yeah, that's been 80 gallons, and it was
Sounds $4 at least.
Yeah, so yeah, it's costs a lot. It costs a lot to travel now.
Yeah, that's like $3,200. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, or 6,000. I don't know. I wasn't very good in school. I think I mentioned that. It's crazy that I teach school.
But isn't math and music related somehow? They both start with M's.
Maybe so. I mean, I've always been good at counting my money because I didn't have very much.
Yeah.
So, I think if you can count your friends and count your money, that's about as much math as you need. So.
Yeah, to be able to count up and down on the scale, maybe. That's about it.
Yeah, that's about it.
Every good boy does fine. Let's see.
That's right. Look at you, man. Let's sign you up. You could have taught at that school.
Oh, that one in Roane County. Every good boy does fine. You're hired.
Yeah. Yeah, that guy lowered his glasses and said, "What you gonna teach?" I said, "Music." He said, "Hold on, sign right here."
Yeah, before you back out.
That's crazy, man. It's actually, because it's crazy because 20 years later, when I get this job in Oak Ridge, they did a nationwide search. Like, they brought in people from all over America.
Yeah, Oak Ridge, huge school.
Yeah. So the first thing they did is they made everybody apply. Then they went through and they weeded out about half of them. And then everybody had to send in, like, DVDs of them conducting, But I did mine on YouTube. I was high tech at the time. And then they invited, like, 10 or 15 folks down. And so you had to pay to come down here, stay in a hotel. And they made everybody teach for free. And so they had just all the administrators and everybody in the back of the room with their arms just folded, and you had to teach to these kids you didn't even know for like 45 minutes, and then the next teacher would come in and do the same thing, and the next teacher would come in, and so, yeah, quite a difference in those school systems in the application process.
Wow, that's like going through the gauntlet.
Yeah. They messed up and hired this guy. So,
Yeah.
But anyways,
And how long have you been there now?
I've been there for 9 years.
Wow.
And I love it. We've my kids, man, they've done great. We've won, I don't know, 7 or 8 national championships, and they've made me look so good that in 2018, the Country Music Association gave me a CMA award. So
no way, you won a CMA?
Yeah, it was crazy, man.
For your teaching.
Yeah, they picked 30 teachers in America, and I was one of them.
Wow, that is really cool.
Yeah, and it's really because of the kids, man. Because they're just so talented, But,
Well, just chasing a rabbit there, we have a teacher in Sunbright, Miss Courtney Ross. She's our band teacher in Sunbright. A little different because she does marching band and all that. I don't know if you do marching band.
No, not at all.
So the marching band, but she actually applied for a grant through the Barry Manilow Foundation or something to do with Barry Manilow, and she won.
That's
so
great.
She got like $10,000 or $12,000
Wow.
worth of free instruments.
That's great.
Because they were all out of uniforms, or all out of the instruments were old. So that was a few years ago. But even in the small schools like that, when a teacher, which sounds like what you do, just takes it to heart and loves the art of music, because music inspires so many other things in a kid's life. It's not just, we got a kid that knows how to play the guitar or the fiddle. They do so much more, and I'm sure there's studies out there that show that, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And so part of that award, they gave me this guitar, man, and so the guitar I'm playing literally is the one I got from the Country Music Association.
And that ain't no cheap guitar. That's a Taylor.
It's a really nice guitar. It's the nicest. It's too nice for me.
Well, the only problem is they gave you a left-handed guitar.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, so I had my dad and I, we were riding in a '68 Camaro one time, and we pull up to this stop sign, and this little car just bam slams into the back of us, and so a little bit of whiplash. We get out. My dad walks back there, and he could tell the people had been tipping back a few cans or something. And he said, "Hey, you need to get off the road right now," because he didn't do any damage to our car. It scratched theirs up a little bit. So we get back in the car. My dad lets them go. We go 2 more blocks, and they hit us again. And this time they hit us just going full speed. And anyways, it broke my arm. And so I used to play everything right-handed, and I had to relearn everything left-handed because I teach the violin, and now if I do the bow too long because I just had to relearn.
So are there left-handed violin players?
Well, if I play it, they're left-handed. You know, there actually are a lot of them out there, but it's like
so they'll chin it on the other side.
Yeah, but they're not playing in orchestras. They're playing by themselves, and then it's like me sitting here with this guitar. You know, it's not obvious. But if you sit in an orchestra and you're the only one playing in the opposite direction, everybody's like, "Look at this one guy here."
Yeah, what's wrong with that guy?
You know, so yeah, you know, but I get a lot of elitist. Oh my God, he's left-handed. So what? He went through a terrible tragedy.
Yeah.
He's left-handed, and it's like, you know, I've dealt with that my whole career. You know, and it's okay, man. You know, the better you do in life, you know, the more people like that you can just laugh.
So being left-handed in the musical field is really a stigma?
Oh yeah,
Really?
really expect like you've got people out there that don't have the degrees you have, don't have the success you have. They're like, yeah, you want to see him, maybe, but God, he's left-handed. I mean, come on, you know, he's left-handed. Come on. So I mean, but yeah, I've had a lot of that in my life, but that's okay.
So while we're talking about the guitar a little bit, when he brought the guitar in here, he was setting it up, folks, and I saw this contraption on the back of the guitar.
Yeah.
So tell us about that contraption and what that does.
Yeah, so I don't know if people can actually hear it. I guess let me I'll show you in just a second, but let me turn it off and let's see.
It's the first time I'd seen one. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
This stuff may be totally boring for you guys, but it's quite interesting
It's
for us.
actually pretty neat though. So this is just the regular guitar. And I'll do that exact same thing, turning this on. And see if you can hear a difference in it. Now, this isn't plugged into any electricity or anything, so here we go.
Oh, yeah, totally. Y'all hear that reverb. You can hear the echo.
So you hear this reverb, and so what I have here, I've got this little thing here. I don't even know what you call it.
So what is it, Velcroed on there?
No, it's not. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hit that mic. So it's this guy right here. And this is crazy. You know, so Exxon was out in the ocean looking for oil. You know, imagine that. And they were using sonar, and they were shooting it down to the bottom of the ocean, trying to locate voids for oil. And the people in the little cockpit area that was working on it, they noticed that all of their voices started bending. And they were all like perfectly in tune. And so they discovered accidentally that sonar created auto-tune. So all these...
No kidding.
Yes, Exxon accidentally discovered auto-tune. Well, along those same lines, so this thing here, this little device here is a little... I don't know what
it's
you
a
call
rubber
it.
foot
Yeah,
almost.
a little foot. But it just presses up against the back of the guitar, and it shoots sonar into the guitar, which causes the wood to reverberate, and it creates the illusion of being hooked up to an amplifier, but you're not. And so this is a crazy thing. I actually did a video on this. I don't think it's on my channel anymore. But yeah, so it sticks on the back of this, and it just sticks there, and that's because I have a magnet mounted on the inside of the guitar. And yeah, it just on and off. But it's really great for doing gigs like this when you don't want to carry an amp and things like that, but it's got all kinds of sounds.
Yeah, because it throws extra power out there. I mean, it's not just about the reverb. Right. I mean, it's
so it does reverb and delay and even distortion and things like that. It's called a tone wood amp, is what it's called. But really cool if you're an acoustic guitar player and you play it in campfires and maybe even in a church or something like that. It's really great, you know, not to have to lug around a lot of equipment, but I love it.
So okay, now we're kind of rolling into this last segment here. Do we have anybody got any requests out there? I don't know if he takes requests. I should have asked him that, but
I'm in a weird tuning right now.
He's in a weird tuning, so it's going to be limited. Can you play us maybe a fan favorite one out there? Any Charlie Daniels or
Not in this tuning. I'll play one more for you.
Okay.
Just in this weird tuning, so I don't have to tune for everybody. If any guitar players out there, I'm in double drop D tuning right now, which is far from standard.
And if you're a guy like me who just strums G, C, and D, well, I have no clue what he's talking about. But
yeah, so everything's out of tune. So this is a song. I don't know who wrote this. Maybe it was Bill Monroe. I don't know. The first version I heard of this was Bill Monroe, but it doesn't sound anything like mine. It's very, very bluegrass. This is a tune about, a lot of times when people think about places like Morgan County and the Appalachian Mountains and things like that, you think about moonshine. I know that the Morgan County Historical Society right over there, I mean, they've got a still in there, somebody's still. Whose still it was that?
So I don't have an answer for that. Jill, if you're still watching, whose still was that over there? John Boy showed that off, John Boy Cadell, and he helped assemble it back together over there.
Yeah.
But I am not sure exactly whose that was. I think they found it up on a mountain somewhere.
But anyways, a lot of people, when you think of moonshiners, you think about these old hillbillies and things like this. But this song is about one bad woman. Her name was Corey. And she was a moonshiner, and she was a bad lady. And so this is a song called Darling Corey. So here we go. And this is my own take on it. So. Wake up, darling Corey. What makes you sleep so sound? The revenue officers are coming. I'm gonna tear your steel house down. Dig a hole in the meadow. Dig a hole in the cocoa ground. Dig a hole in the meadow. Gonna lay darling Corey down. Well, the first time I met darling Corey, she was standing on the edge of the sea with a 44 strapped to her body and a banjo on her knee. Dig a hole in the meadow. Dig a hole in the cocoa ground. Dig a hole in the meadow. Gonna lay darling Corey down. Wake up, darling Corey. Now go and fetch my gun. Now you know I ain't a man looking for trouble, but I'll die before I run. So dig a hole in the meadow. Dig a hole in the cocoa ground. Dig a hole in the meadow. Gonna lay darling Corey down.
Darling Corey.
Yeah, so first time you saw her, she had a 44 pistol and a banjo. And you know that's a bad woman when she's making moonshine and she's got a 44 and a banjo.
Oh, yeah. She's taking care of business. Well, folks, we appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. It's been a great show. We appreciate JD coming up all the way from Oak Ridge, the big city.
Yeah, the big city.
When we need something in Morgan County, we go to Oak Ridge.
Yeah. So I passed this place on the way out here and had a lot of people in the parking lot, and I was craning my neck back and looking at it. It looked like it said Coal Creek something. Is it a restaurant down there?
Yeah, so down on the corner, well, it's at the red light, basically.
Yeah.
There is Pro Service Motorsports. That's Timmy Phillips' place, but right there in that same building, shopping center, is a Coal Creek Grill, I think it's called.
Is Coal Creek really running behind it?
I think, or maybe they got the name from like where you spoke of it, because there is a creek that runs right there, and it may be the same. So I've not ate there in its new form. I ate there once. It's been a Mexican restaurant and some other things.
Okay.
But this one I think has survived the longest of the previous.
Yeah, I didn't get to see a lot of it, but we're always looking for places like that.
Well, what about, have you ate at Dean's in Oak Ridge?
Oh,
Yeah, that's a great place.
Yeah.
Soup Kitchen.
Yeah, we ate Soup Kitchen yesterday.
What about the other? It's not the other guys. What is it called?
The other one?
The other one, maybe it's the place with the nice burgers.
They're called the other one. You know, they actually closed down. You know, like they changed ownership or something. But I used to.
Oh, really?
It. Yeah, I used to love that place. They moved locations and then they were just gone. So,
yeah, because they were in the Grove, right?
Yeah. Because see, there was 2 deli places there. There was this deli place, and it was like really popular, and they didn't know what to call theirs, so they just called it the other one. And it became
that's cool.
And it became even more popular. And I don't know what happened. You know, I really don't know. But I think it changed ownership and something happened. But no, I don't. You know, we love supporting like mom and pop type places. We used to come over here and eat at a little place that used to be
Angie's.
Yeah. And I don't think it's open anymore.
It's no more. So we had a Mexican family move in and open another Mexican restaurant. They bought Angie's, and they're actually, I think, looking at making an Italian restaurant there now. That's in the works.
Yeah.
And then they opened up another Mexican restaurant, Los Chorritos, and then we have El Patron, of course. But anyway, great family.
Yeah.
But what's your favorite hole in the wall in Oak Ridge to eat at?
Honestly, I think it's probably Billy's Timeout Deli.
Over there on the right beside Shoney's?
Yeah. I like to eat their burgers and things.
And they got a steak in a sack, right?
Yeah, I like to watch people cook the food, you know. I like to go sit down and just smell it cooking, and it's just one of those places. I mean, it's not like it's, you know, it's great, but it beats a fast food, you know, type place any day. So.
Well, I know there's a lot of people that do this, but I kind of think, you know, you're out traveling the world, you're kind of doing these Appalachian stories because Appalachia runs all the way from West Virginia down to where we're at and in between. Do you ever think about maybe throwing on some dives and places on your channel maybe sometime?
Actually.
Some like Appalachian food, you know?
There are some behind-the-scene videos. I always stop at general stores and country stores and like little what I call shack stores.
Yeah.
I actually last week did a video about a little shack store that I found in a place called Meadows of Dan, Virginia. And so I look up this little store, and it was called Mayberry General Store. And so we did a lot of research on it, and it turns out that was where Andy Griffith's mother and grandparents were from. They lived there.
Oh, wow.
And this little store, they lived there from
before they went to Mount Airy, I guess.
1890s, all the way up until the Blue Ridge Parkway came through.
Okay.
When the Blue Ridge Parkway came through, it ran right through Mayberry and destroyed the town. So most people had to move down the mountain because it's a mountain, Mayberry Mountain, and they ended up in Mount Airy. And so, so
you're saying that Mount Airy, which we all know as Mayberry, that's kind of where it came from. But Mount Airy, there was a place called Mayberry, is what you're saying, right? It was a mountain.
Check the video out. I put it out last week. It's called The Real Mayberry. It's about 25,000 people watched it last week, and I've had a lot of elderly people say, "I thought I knew everything about Andy Griffith, but I didn't know this."
Wow.
And so it's a really cool video. It's called The Real Mayberry.
And that one's out on his YouTube channel, The Real Mayberry. Check it out. It's just got released last week.
Yeah, last week, yeah. And I guess I should mention this one as well, since we're in Morgan County. I also did a video on Stupidville, which
the small Tennessee's lowest population city.
Yeah, which was about 2 miles from here before they rebuilt the road out here.
Well, I hadn't got to watch the Stupidville video yet, but you know there was a little restaurant there named Pilot Mountain. Pilot Mountain Diner, and inside there, Vicky Goad, she had all kinds of pictures on the wall, and she had pictures of Stupidville. They used to have a public pool there and other things.
Yeah. So I accidentally discovered Stupidville. I was researching something else at a East Tennessee Historical Society up here in Knoxville, and I ran across a newspaper article that was talking about how great it would be to retire in Stupidville. I just kind of set it to the side, and then I ran across 2 or 3 more. It's like, this is crazy. So I did this. I did the whole story of Stupidville, and it's really cool. If you're Morgan County buff, definitely check that out. It's a really great story. I think maybe 30 or 40,000 people have watched that one as well. And I had somebody today contact me on YouTube, and they were like, "Thank God I found this video, because I've told people all my life that I've been to Stupidville, and they've mocked me for
They
it.
didn't believe them, right?
Yeah, but it was a real place.
Well, we have two other people besides Ray Smith. Ray Smith is the Oak Ridge historian who writes for us, but we also have the Morgan County historian, Michael Nance, writes for us. And his partner in crime, as I call him, Terry Futrell, which is a great friend of ours, and he does wonderful things for the paper. But they're history buffs about Civil War, all things Morgan County, anything you want to know, they know. Yeah. So maybe sometime that would be cool to pick their brains about some things, and that will put you on so many different stories. And they're so precise about their research. That there was a gentleman out of UT one time, as the story goes. He was a professor there, and he did this story. And as they like to say, he did I don't want to say a shoddy job, but he didn't check all of his sources. And they had all the documentation to show with
him out.
to basically say, hey, you said this guy had to live here, but we have documentation showing that right here is where the grave was, or whatever. And they're just great guys. So we'll make sure and get y'all in contact, because you never know when it might lead to another story or another episode on the Appalachian Storyteller.
Absolutely.
Because what it's all about, folks, as you guys know, whether it's here at the Morgan County Today or whether it's with the Appalachian Storyteller, it's all about shining a light on the wonderful things in this area so that it's there for the future generations to enjoy. Because one day, we're all going to be gone. That's just the way it is. Lord tarries, the creek don't rise. We'll be out of here before you know it. Life is a vapor. But we can leave a legacy, and we can talk about these things that are where we came from. And, even about the restaurants. Have you ever stumbled on a place that they specialize in Appalachian food? Is that a thing?
Well, I mean, my house. I don't know. I think everybody just calls it Southern cooking. But but Appalachian food is not Southern cooking.
Okay, so do you think there's certain staples that would be considered Appalachian? What would they be?
I think it seems. Well, yeah, it definitely would be fried potatoes and probably some cabbage and onions and throw in some bacon or bacon grease in there, things like that. Lots of meals that just would have cucumbers in them, or just tomatoes and
smorgasbord of garden foods, right?
Yeah, lots of just natural food.
Yeah.
There's a place, and I'm trying to think of what the name of it is, but we go over across the Smokies in the North Carolina when everybody starts saying Ewans. When they start calling you Ewans instead of you guys or you all or y'all, when they start saying Ewans, you can find some Appalachian food there. There's a couple of restaurants in there, and I can't remember I don't know if my wife is watching this, but we've been to several of them over there. Thanks, JD. I learned a lot about the area through the channel. Thanks, George. Appreciate you, brother.
And George, he's reading that from all the way on the other side. I seen George earlier today. I told him you were going to be on. So George is an Air Force vet. He retired, and I believe Air Force. If it's Army, I'm sorry, George. I'm pretty sure it's Air Force.
Thank you for your service, brother.
Yeah, 20 years and out. And, no, it was Army, I'm pretty sure. He was a guy. He's a soldier like me. Anyway, he's just he loves the area. He's the implant, right? Yeah. So those are the folks. Everybody is special. But these implants, they choose to come here and live here. And so they soak this up.
Oh, I know. I know. I think that's a lot of the audience that I get now, because everybody's trying to move to East Tennessee.
Yeah.
It's like one of the top 5 places in America to move to right now, because of the taxes and the way the government's run and the people and the beauty. I think we live in one of the most beautiful areas in America.
Well, have you saw, there's this documentary called Harlan County, USA. Have you seen it? It's about the coal mines.
Okay, yeah, that's Kentucky, isn't it?
Yes,
yeah.
So it's in Kentucky, but it's a literal documentary that they filmed during the coal mine kind of wars up there, right? Where the unions and the sheriff and all they got into it. And they called in the National Guard and all these things. But it reminded me when you're talking about Ewans, because there's a unique dialect in Appalachia. And I had a friend in Nashville where I worked, and he used to get on to me for saying ain't and things.
Yeah,
and I told him that was cultural genocide. But basically, an Appalachian dialect is something that it's hard to find anymore. But when you find a genuine strain of it, man, it is just so nice.
Yeah, and really because people were so isolated in different hollows and things like that. Because, before the railroad came in, this place was like another planet. Because, like, when the railroad came in and people in Appalachia saw people putting up Christmas trees in their house, they were like, well, what? Like, that wasn't a thing until the railroad came through. There wasn't a such thing as Memorial Day or Easter or any of that. Memorial Day was called Decoration Day. Easter was called Resurrection Day. And so like all of these, popular culture type holidays that we have now, they didn't exist here. It was the railroad. The railroad was the internet of that day.
And so was that around the mid 1800s or so?
Late 1800s. Well, the Civil War in the 1860s, stopped a lot of things for a while. And some places had the railroad prior to that, but most of them it was afterwards. But yeah, the railroad. I did a story on over in Bulls Gap, Tennessee, a couple of weeks ago about an abandoned hotel over there called the Gillies Hotel, and I found this lady who had passed on, but I found like her diary of being a little girl growing up her whole life in that hotel, and when the railroad first came through, and how all the people every day would just go out there to see these new faces coming off the railroad, and the railroad workers would stay at that hotel and tell jack tales, storytelling, and some of the best musicians that you'd ever heard, but they were like from another planet.
Yeah,
coming in on the railroad, but yeah, really cool.
And then they're just mesmerized.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like these movies you see where the snake oil salesman, right? So what was so attractive about the snake oil salesman back in the old days is, he's talking things they've never heard before, and he's doing things they've never done before, and he's putting on a show. Or when the carnival came to town, I mean, these are anomalies for folks that are excluded from the normal cultural things going on in the day.
Definitely.
And I mean, as the snake oil salesmen go, that's people who learn to take advantage of those people.
Right,
but it's just interesting to see that part of history and how.
Yeah, and the thing is, being a teacher, I see all these state tests that people take, and they have to know this about American history. They have to know this about American history, and these kids don't know anything about their town. They don't know anything about their county. They don't know anything about their ancestors. They don't. The stuff that I put out there it's pretty much, people 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. They're the people that care about it, and these young kids, and young adults, they just don't have a clue about it. And that's a direct failure of the public education system. That's a whole nother topic, but the thing is what you learn in school isn't necessarily real history, particularly if you've been somewhere your whole life. I have people all the time say, I lived here 60 years, I never heard of this. Right here in Wartburg, I can't tell you how many people said, you made that up about Stupidville.
Yeah. And it's true.
I didn't.
And I never, until I went to Vicky's store and saw it on the wall.
Yeah.
I never knew it existed.
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
Yeah.
When I was in school, which I graduated in 01, JD, and we still had Tennessee history in 7th grade back then. Now that's non-existent.
Yeah.
There's a company that makes Tennessee history for kids, and you can buy these little books online, and it does the Tennessee history. But man, I guess it's just because there's so much more history out there, and we're trying to be so culturally sensitive to learn everything about everybody instead of focusing, on certain things. And when you talk about younger generations not necessarily being interested, it is a failure. It's almost like secession training.
Yeah, but I think too that the kids feel like, just being around teenagers every day, I think they feel like they don't need to know it because I've got this little device in my hand.
I can ask a question.
I don't need to know it, and even I can just forget it, and it doesn't matter, and it's still right here, And so I see that a lot, in the last 20 years of teaching. It's humans are almost like a different species now.
Well, when you and I don't know, what year did you graduate high school, JD?
God, I don't know. 2000. Let's see, 48, but 30 years ago, whatever that was.
Oh, wow, okay. See, I thought he was as young as I am, even though I'm old. So, okay, so let's think about this. When you went into the library at school, and Jill, you'll appreciate this, and you guys watching, George, even Adam. Hey, Adam, when you went into the library, you had to look it up through those, what was that called, index cards?
Dewey Decimal System.
Yeah, the Dewey Decimal System. When I was in 8th grade, I had to help them install a new barcoding system on all the books. So I stayed in there for hours doing this, inputting information. Yeah. But our kids wouldn't even know what Dewey Decimal System means.
Yeah, I know that. But, even me, haven't done it in forever. I go to the East Tennessee Historical Society all the time researching, and you go in there and they have, they have the Tennessee room, and everything's in little collections, and you have to. But it's not the index cards anymore. They find it on the computer, but you still have to be able to read those weird numbers on those books to find them. So but that's a lost thing nowadays. I've got this. Google. I've got my. I was at school today and teaching in Oak Ridge. They're going back and they're already trying to figure out how to outsmart the kids. And the kids are so smart. We have technology departments and everything at school, and it's like, man, just hire a 15-year-old. Yeah. They have firewalls blocking these kids from doing everything. Whenever I can't get something to work in my classroom, kids like, you want me to fix it? I mean, yeah, dude, like, you could put 3 15-year-olds in here and they could run this whole thing. Yeah. Kids, they're just so smart, Today they're like, what are we going to do about their Apple Watches? Because we take their cell phones, but they can still do everything on their watch,
And when we were in school, we had, if you really had some money, you might have had one of those calculator watches, remember, or a remote control watch to turn the TV on.
Dude, I was passing notes. Yeah, I was writing on paper.
I forgot. He is like 10 years older than me.
I was passing notes. We didn't. I didn't go to a school that had air conditioning until I was in 8th grade.
No kidding.
And I remember it would get so hot that the teacher would literally just tell everybody, hey, just put your head down. We're going to open the window. Put your head down. Okay, that fixes it. Yeah. Just put your head down.
It's still hot.
But they built this new building outside, and so I would go to that building for 2 classes a day, and you walk into that. It was like walking into a freezer. And it felt like I got so sick just being, I think people all the time say, it's hotter nowadays. It's hotter nowadays. I think it's the air conditioning. We've lost, like, the ability.
The temperance, the tolerance of the heat.
Yeah. You just as, we've lost that, I think I worked with a guy one time, man, you could ask him if it was cloudy, raining, whatever, and you could say, what time is it? He never wore a watch. He'd tell you to the minute what time it was, and he had this big thing about how we lost the ability because of watches. And he went all the way back to the Romans, talking about when the Romans first started putting sundials in the city. The sun, and people were like, I used to know when to eat just by my stomach, but now I got to look at this thing telling me when to eat. Just I don't know. That really is just random, but it's
as you're traveling through the area in the Appalachia, and then we'll wrap this thing up. I don't know if you got one more tune or something, but
no, I'm good.
Okay, so we're done with the singing, but that's okay. Yeah. So, like my granny Franny, she lived till she was 92 years old, and she always worked in the garden. She always caught night crawlers at night with her big fingernails and things like that. But she was always in shape, healthy, and she ate with lard. She fried everything. Right. And do you see that a lot when you're going around? The stories from these elderly folks.
Yeah, I actually I interviewed a lady. She was over here at the Historical Society recently. She just turned 101 from Oakdale. Miss Jeanette, I believe is her name. And she was telling me about growing up, in Appalachia in 1921. And she was telling me, I asked her what was the greatest thing she had seen in her entire life. She's 101. And she didn't even hesitate. She said, I remember the first time I was in that mountain holler in Oakdale, and somebody brought in what looked like it was a time machine, and it was a radio. And they turned it on, and you could hear voices from beyond that mountain.
Wow.
In 1921. She said it just blew her mind, and she was 100 years old, and that was still the greatest thing. Because I asked her, I said, have you ever been on the internet? What do you think about it? And she said, nothing could compare to the way I felt when I heard the radio for the first time.
Wow.
It's pretty mind-blowing, So.
Well, folks, we sure appreciate JD's time, and they're telling us it's the card catalog, Dewey Decimal System.
Dewey Decimal System? What is the Dewey Decimal System? Is that math or something?
I don't know. Jill, you got to know what Dewey Decimal. We're going to have to Google that. Somebody should have Googled that. Let's look like this. Anyway, but JD, we sure appreciate you coming up, man, and it's been great.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for the tunes. I know everybody's enjoyed it. Make sure you go follow the Appalachian Storyteller on Facebook. Make sure you go subscribe to his YouTube channel. And again,
I'll leave some stickers he can give away sometime. Here's
wonderful.
Appalachian stickers.
Love the stickers.
Magnets and things like that.
Look at that. He's even got swag, folks. You know he's the real deal. We don't even have that yet. We're going to. But so he's got his great logo. It's really cool. And you guys make sure you support him. He's a local guy. He's a music teacher, and he just needs our help. You know, because he does such great stuff. Go watch the Stupidville video. That's from right here in Morgan County. Do you got any other ones focused on Morgan County right now?
I did a video on the complete history of this church that's right behind us. It's
okay, the Lutheran church.
I did that.
Oh, the Presbyterian church.
The Presbyterian church. I did Brushy Mountain. I did Petros. Of course, Stupidville. And maybe there's 5 or 6 or so. I don't know. There's over 150 videos all about history of East Tennessee.
Great. So you guys heard it from JD first. Make sure you go check all that stuff out. And again, if you join his channels where you have to pay a little bit a month, it's not required. Everything's free, but you might get earlier access to certain things. See some backstage kind of stuff and how the videos are filmed.
It's $2 a month. It's like buying a Coke. It's
$2 a month. And look, you really help out a great cause. He's out there helping these kids. JD, thanks for coming on.
Hey,
anything else you'd like to add?
Thank y'all so much for your support. Thanks for supporting the podcast, and thanks for having me on.
All right, Bubba. So we are going to take just a minute to run over a few announcements here. We, again, appreciate JD for coming on, and make sure you go follow his pages, the YouTube channel, the Appalachian Storyteller, and the Facebook page, Appalachian Storyteller. Share this with your friends. We did a TMC this week, our newspaper. It came free to every home, 99% of the homes in Morgan County. They might have missed a few, but anyway, you should be receiving that today or tomorrow. It's a free edition of the paper. Everybody got that one, so we're excited to have been able to do that. And we want to thank all you guys for watching and sharing the post. And just keep tuning in. We'll probably have another video sometime this week, go live, talk about some local issues and things like that, because for some reason you guys eat that up like it's hard candy. I don't understand. But anyhow, my joke of the night before we run off, I should have told this one earlier, is there was 2 kids up in Scott County that got caught ripping a calendar in half, and the law had to get them. And they both got 6 months. Woo! Okay, that one gets a laughter there. Y'all like that one. Anyway, yeah, my buddy told me that one. His channel's name is the Appalachian Storyteller. It's on YouTube. I put a link to the Facebook page there. Help him there, too. We'll get that one boosted up. And then, I don't know, he might get in the Instagram world. That's kind of for them kiddos, but I'm old, too. So, anyway, appreciate everybody. Love y'all. God bless. Have a great evening.